Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're going to wait for just a couple of minutes before we get started, okay? Okay, I think we'll just get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Srimoyee Mitra. I am the director of Stamps Gallery, and my pronouns are she, hers. And I want to welcome you all for joining us here today. We are here for the first info session for the Undergraduate Juried Exhibition 2024. So very excited to be here. Just so you all know, we are recording this the Zoom info session, and we will post it on the website. So do let your friends know that if they are unable to be here, that they can access all the materials online as well. So just as we get started, I want to introduce a couple of colleagues. Joe Rohr is here. I'll let him introduce himself and just say what he does at the gallery. Go ahead, Joe.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Like Srimoyee said, my name is Joe. I'm the exhibitions coordinator and preparator at Stamps Gallery. So I'm responsible for installing the Undergraduate Juried show when we finally arrive there.
So yes, you all will be hearing from Joe, at some point when during the process, and we will go through that arc today. I also want to mention and welcome Mark, Chung Kwan Fan, our Director of Student Life. Mark, do you want to say hi?
Yes, I think most people know me from orientation and seeing me in the building, but welcome, and hopefully this session is going to be helpful to you all.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, so let's get started. Undergraduate Juried Exhibition. So as you all know, this is kind of one of the highlights of our year. It's an exhibition that brings together really, I think about it like a snapshot of work by students, of all undergraduate students from first year to fourth year, all have an opportunity to apply for the exhibition. Of course, there is a selection process and a jury, who does select the work, and so it's always, I think the biggest and most important part of this exhibition is actually the process of applying, and then of course it's a bonus if you're selected this year, and if not, there will be subsequent years and other opportunities that we can get to. So the way we've planned this info session and the goal is really, I'm going to run through a few slides just to talk about the objectives, and just touch on a few points of how to apply, and then I really want to leave a bunch of time for questions so we can really have a conversation. And so all questions are important and valid, and so we're going to want to leave as much time as we can to address any questions that you may have. Okay, so exhibition. So to that end, sorry, as I get started, if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I will, though, just for me, it'll be easier to address them as we, all at the end, and hopefully that'll lead to a robust discussion. Okay, so exhibition objectives. So the objective of the undergraduate juried exhibition is to create create an opportunity for students to create high caliber and ambitious artworks that inspires undergrads, to instill knowledge and skills in preparing the juried exhibition. So as I mentioned, probably the most important part of this exhibition is that process of applying for the exhibition, because that knowledge and those skills is something that you're going to take into the world with you, and it will stay, and you're only going to be honing it and hopefully getting better and better at it as undergraduate juried exhibitions exist. There's so many of them, and they exist kind of across Michigan, across the country, and internationally. And it's a great way to have your work seen, especially to audiences who might not be familiar with your work. The third important objective of the exhibition is to contribute as a student. It's an opportunity for you to contribute to building a vibrant culture of participating in exhibitions and programs in the STEM school. So, by participating, we are creating sort of a lively, kind of a back and forth, a lively culture. And so, thank you for applying, because you are contributing towards building this sort of strong culture. And finally, the exhibition also provides an opportunity for alums, those who have been at the school for who went to school and graduated years ago, or just, last year, to come back to see what's happening in the school. And, usually at the opening and the walkthrough is when they come to the exhibition. And it provides a really nice opportunity. Sometimes, they will talk to the student, students talk to the alum, and there's another nice opportunity of building a more vibrant community. Student learning outcomes. So our hope with the undergraduate exhibition, juried exhibition, is that you will gain confidence and motivation to create work and expand your skills in critical thinking. So, juried exhibitions, another, kind of similar or aspect is writing grants. There's, the more you do, you enter the process, the more opportunity you have to hone those skills and deepen the understanding. And the second is to gain an understanding and proficiency of artistic merit and the quality and so really to consider in a juried exhibition, of course, typically we're looking for, we're not looking for an entire exhibition, so it's one or two works. So it's really an opportunity to focus on a few works and make them the best you can. Articulate an understanding of applying for and navigating juried exhibitions outside of the STEM school. So this is something I mentioned a few minutes ago as well. This process of applying for the exhibition will help you kind of build those skills, right? And it's kind of sharpen those and give you a sense of how when you're after stamps, or even while you're a student, if you want to apply for other exhibitions, hopefully by applying for the undergrad juried exhibition, that'll give you some skills and knowledge of how to navigate different exhibitions. And then acquire the experience of bringing artwork out of the studio into the public space. So it's really kind of, the work that you've been making in your classes and your studios now comes out to a larger public audience. And there's an opportunity for discussion and interactions that emerge from your artwork. And that's a really wonderful way of understanding how folks, the public, interacts with their work, what they are, what are their, what their responses. And that, as an artist, can actually, it's like it completes the loop, that feedback will then begin to inform your work even further. Okay. This selection criteria. So one of the selection criteria is artistic merit and artistic quality. Again, this is a juried exhibition. So this is the criteria that the jury members will be looking at and thinking about when they are reviewing. They go through all the applications. So what does that mean, artistic merit and artistic quality? So work that reveals different layers of meaning and purpose that are relevant and appropriate to our current times, embody innovation and technical skills that demonstrate an understanding of the medium, and clearly express the ideas that informed and shaped the work. So again, like deep, to consider kind of all aspects of the work, from the formal aspects and the technical skills, and then going from that to see, does the way in which the work is rendered, is it sort of kind of speaking to the concept and the ideas behind the work and yeah. And the next one is a commitment to the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So works that, they will be looking for, so as I said, as the undergraduate juried exhibition, we want to make sure, and the jury will want to make sure that there is a wide representation of students from their first year, second year, third year, and the fourth year as a senior. So, to make sure that, there's a diverse sort of representation of students from the class, from the years that they're in, the different media that they use, as well as, so forms and expressions, as well as race and ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, language, culture, national origin, religious commitment, and disability ability status. So, and, the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're sort of, we glean that from the schools, the STAMP schools, DEI sort of principles, and the STRAT plan. And we look for, and one of the aspects of this is also works that encapsulate artist passion and articulation of social movements, such as sustainability, environmental justice, gender advocacy, and so on. Okay, so preparing to submit. So a strong artist statement, and we thought we could have some sort of do's and don'ts. So an artist statement is obviously a really important part of your application process. This is the time that you have an opportunity to tell the jurors what, about your work through your own words. So when you're writing an artist statement, this is a piece of writing by you that will then also help, because it's not only the jurors, it's also the audience, because ultimately that artist statement will be used for your exhibition labels. The artwork labels, but it helps the audience and the jury sort of access or understand your artistic work. We typically write artist statements in first person, whereas, a bio, and I'll get to that next, is written in third person. Another really important aspect of artist statements is to be very clear and concise. Talk about your ideas without using sort of big jargons or art speak. It's more important that you just clearly try to communicate your idea behind the piece and why that's important to you, and that will go much further than if you're like jargon and art speak. Another aspect is you might have them, there will probably be a word length. When you go into your form, there's a word cap of how many words can be in this artist statement. So, stick to that. And before submitting, this is something that I always do. I still do before, when I submit something, is I try to read it out loud, and I make sure that it, it sounds the way it does out loud as it does in my head, right? And if you have a friend or family member or colleague you can share it with, you can read it to, and who can give you feedback, that's always a great way to make sure that that it's also understandable to someone other than yourself, and to get feedback. That's always a great way to make sure that it's clear and precise and easily understandable, and that you're conveying your ideas. Yes.
Srimoyee, can I ask a question to the audience real quick?
Sure.
If you can maybe react just by by answering my question, have any of you heard of STAMP's writing consultants? If you can maybe like raise your hand or react. I know a lot of you are first and second year students, and it seems like there's not a lot of reactions in the Zoom room right now. But one thing that I would recommend is to, I'm going to put in the chat in a little bit, consult with a writing consultant who have seen a lot of artist statements, helped a lot with artist statements, but also they can help you with the rest of your application too, right? In terms of writing something really strong. I know, again, a lot of you are first and second year students, so you probably have not had an artist statement yet, but we have writing consultants at STAMPS who can help you with that. So I'm going to put the link in the chat so you can connect with them as well if you're thinking about applying.
Sounds great. So and after this we can come back to artist statements and during the chat if you all would like, and we can discuss this further. So to prepare to submit, the don'ts are so when we say artist statement is really about the work that you have created. So if it's a painting, for example, you say this work is about the sunset that I've seen, when I was on summer, during my travels and this, over the summer holidays, and, to speak more specifically about the work, whereas a bio, which is really about you. The bio will talk about, so I'll say Srimoyee Mitra Srimoyee Mitra works at the Stamp School of Art and Design as the director of Stamps Gallery. So then it's third person and factual information about who you are and your experiences and your accomplishments. So some things you might want to include is, that you're a student at the Stamp School of Art and Design, if there are any sort of relevant kind of awards and things, whereas an artist statement is more about the concept and the ideas behind the work and the choices you've made. So in this work I decided to paint my the mountain green because and I'm obviously, this is a very simplified example, but it's we're trying to convey just speak to some of the kind of major decisions, important decisions in the work. Again, avoiding jargon and generic statements. Rather, it's always better to be more specific about your work. And similarly, again, be honest. Don't worry about making the work fit into sort of trending themes and buzzwords, but rather just be true to yourself, your experience, and that just goes a long way, because people then see your work for what it is, and beyond, rather than these big words, rather than jargon and buzzwords. Okay. So the next aspect of preparing preparing the how to submit is strong photo documentation. So for example, on the left-hand side, to my left, the painting where we can actually see the entire painting is very important. The jurors actually review the work digitally, right? The images that you provide of the work, whereas the image on the right, where we see the painting in the easel with a background, that makes it much harder. It's not just, it's much harder to see the details of the painting. So typically, you want the work to be high resolution, and something where, the jurors will actually be able to scroll in, see the work fully. Also, lighting is really important. Make sure that you have good lighting when you're photographing the work. As you can see, the one on the right is quite dark. You can't really tell, the different, the sort of the layers, like the whites, the colors, the different textures, and the nuances within the paintings and the layers. So think about it that, when you're presenting your work for documentation, you're showing your work to someone who has never seen the work, right? And that is what they're going to be, that is what they have to make the selections for the exhibition. So that is something to really take some efforts on. And while you're preparing this application, if you're always welcome to talk to your faculty members, talk to your instructors about the application. If there's a work that you're making in your class, after the assignment, if you think, oh, this could be really great for the undergrad juried show, that's great. You should hold on to that thought, and then you can actually use that work to submit to the undergrad juried show. And then also feel free to consult with your instructors about questions you may have, or if you think, I wonder if if this could be a good work. That's also a good question to discuss with your instructors, as well as, of course, your friends and colleagues. It's always good to get feedback, but don't never hesitate to bring that to the instructors that you have. Okay, what do we have next? So you must have received an email in October, and it's also been in the Stamps Weekly, the call for artwork. So do remember the deadline is November 26, 2023. I've just put the link to the application here below. It's a JAT form. We do ask that time-based work be submitted as a YouTube or Vimeo link, because that's kind of the best way that the juries can watch the videos. So we can, I'm curious to hear. It's also online on the website, and I'll put it in the chat. Everything that I've been through, all those details are actually on the web page right now for the Undergraduate Juried Show. We also have and all of this material that I'm sharing is part of the Undergraduate Juried Exhibition guidebook, which is a PDF that is also online, and we'll post all those links in a few minutes, and that you can access. And with that, so students will be notified by the end of the term, whether they're selected. And honestly, I can't stress how I think everyone who applies should be proud that you have applied for the exhibition. And, this is something that this process of applying, whether you're applying for an exhibition or you're applying for a grant, or maybe you're applying for a job, the process of applying is the most important. And it's actually I always say it's a big deal that you've applied, and then what happens next, we shall see, right? But that's the most important part. And so those, students who are not selected, don't be too disheartened, although it's always, it is always hard to get an email saying, we're sorry about this time. But just to remember this is one of many, many, many juried exhibitions that you will be applying for, hopefully. And hopefully this exhibition, this process will just help you be one step in sort of strengthening and building your skills on applying. So then we will have a second info session which is about preparing for your exhibition. So once you're notified that, yes, you've been selected, then what you will be doing then is like, yay, celebrate, and then get ready to start sort of preparing your work to bring to the exhibition. So how do you prepare to bring, bring your work to the exhibitions? What are some of the things you need to be aware of if it's a print or a painting or a photograph? What if you have a sound piece? What are the formats in which the works can be will be accepted in? Should you frame the work or not? If you don't want it framed, how do we install it? So the next info session, we will go through, we will discuss all of that. There we'll request all the students who have been selected to absolutely attend, but it will be open to everybody to apply. And that's already scheduled for January 19th. We will be sending out a Zoom link in the new year. So with that, I think we are at the part for questions. So if you are, we can, I can stop the screen share. This is quite informal. Please feel free to, you can add questions on chat, or we can, you can just speak up if you would like to, share your video, or just unmute yourself and ask your question, and we'll try to address them. No questions?
Maybe I can add something real quick, Srimoyee. I've had questions in the past from students about like, what kind of work do I submit? Can I submit work from high school? Can I submit work outside of coursework? Any work, you can submit that as long as it's the best work, right? So it doesn't matter when you did it or where you did it, just submit your best work. And it's going to be one work submitted per student. So we won't be accepting 2 works per student either.
Yeah, and to that end, sometimes a work has sort of 3 or 4 components, right? Maybe it's a series of 3 prints, or there's a print, an object, or a book. So feel free. So if you think of all of those things as one work, then just state that explicitly in your artist statement. It helps if they have the same sort of title or the name. So and then the jury can consider that as sort of one work. Yeah. Well, also, I can always put my email in the chat if there are more specific questions. You can always reach out to me and we will try to address them. The deadline is on November 26th, so we still have some time. But the months and the weeks go by really fast. So start thinking now in terms of what you want to apply for. And hopefully, I think that, hopefully we can, have a good pool of applicants. What about documentation? Does anybody have questions about documentation of artwork?
Really quick question. For time-based media, how will it be, if we get into the exhibition, how will that be kind of presented? Do we have any say in it, or is it kind of just on like a monitor?
Yeah, so it depends. So sometimes we will make, it depends on the work. So if the time-based media, if you consider it sort of an installation where it needs a projection for specific reasons, put that in to your you know, when you're at that stage, share that information with us, and we'll do, you know, we will try our best to make sure that it can be, you know, that we can make it, that it can be this installation. Sometimes we also, with video work and time-based media, we do create like a reel
Okay, cool.
of videos, and so we create like so it does go, you know, probably on one of our 65-inch monitors, and you know, we'll go from one video to the next, and we have sort of you know, a label which lists the order in which the films are, and so, you know, one of the things that we have to be mindful, you know, at the gallery is how do we, because the goal as well, and, you know, this is something that we share with the jurors, is, you know, typically we've had about 60 to 65 works, which is, you know, quite a bit of work, and we want to make all of them obviously fit and look great. So how can we do that with, you know, with all the work? So, you know, so for example, if there are 5, it'll be difficult to have, for example, 5 projections, right? Rather, it's better to have like one viewing room or a viewing space where, you know, people can sit and watch the whole reel. Yeah.
Cool.
But then there are, like last year we did have a projection because it was sort of, it was more of a, like you know, they were projecting on an object, and so that, you know, it was quite specific. It was not kind of like a video, you know, that would make sense to sit and watch. Yeah, that was more experiential.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Kira, I see a question. Go ahead, Joe, sorry.
Oh, I think we were saying the same thing, Mark. There's a question in the chat related to work that centers around a popular character, and if that is allowed.
I would say yes, absolutely. There's no, you can make a work, you know, it's, if it's a popular character as part of our contemporary culture. So yeah.
And Mercy, you can
Yeah,
address
so
it.
I'll just read it. If I'm submitting a poster, would it be better to submit a photo of it printed or hanging in a digital file? So I would say a digital file would be best, rather than a picture of it hanging, right? Because we want the jurors to be able to see as much of your poster as, you know, we want them to see the poster, the actual work, right? And then yeah, does that help? Whereas we don't need to see kind of the context in which it's hanging, unless that's actually part of the work. Does that make sense? Good questions.
I'm gonna just jump in really quick also. This is just a general documentation comment, which is the more clear the images can be and the more they can relate to your artist's statement, the better. So we have seen applications in the past where, you know, Srimoyee mentioned context, right? Where work is photographed sort of zoomed out, and there's a lot of other stuff in those images. And we have seen jurors struggle to interpret those images, just whether or not the things in the background are part of that work or installation components to that work. So just keep that in mind, that everything that's in the frame is going to be considered, and so don't include anything extraneous if you're at all able to avoid it.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And so I thought I'll just bring this up again, this image, this slide, because, you know, the one on the right, you have the painting, and then you also have the walls with the wallpaper. And so the jury will ask, well, is this, which is this entire thing the work? You know, the painting hanging, is it a photograph of the painting hanging, or, you know, yeah, where is the work here? So we want it to be absolutely, we want, you know, whatever we present or put into the application, we want to be absolutely clear for the jurors that they know that, you know, what is exactly the image that that's been submitted. I know there was a question about 3D work. And I'm just going to remind myself, is it going to be on the floor? Can it be on a stand or on the floor? Yes. So yeah, every year we typically do have, you know, sculpture, ceramics, installation, 3D work, basically. So yeah, again, it depends on the work and what the artist or the student would like, but we do have a whole range of pedestals on which, you know, depending on the work, we would place the 3D object on a pedestal, or, you know, if it needs to be on the floor, you know, we've also placed sort of sculptures on the floor. Is there anything more, Joe, that you'd want to add to that, or?
Yeah, so I would say that, you know, in terms of work being placed on the floor versus a shelf or a pedestal, that generally is a consideration of size, of scale. So if a work is really, really tiny, just for the safety of the work, we probably won't place it directly on the floor. And, you know, if it's meant to be viewed at, you know, sort of a lower height, we may put it on a low pedestal or plinth. But typically things that end up on the directly on the floor are larger scale works, or works that are minimally large enough, if it's the artist's preference, large enough that they are easily seen and recognized to be work by our audience.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is about industrial design. Is the way to specify my work as an industrial design when submitting? In addition, could you provide some examples of work that you consider as industrial design? So I'd say that the artist statement is a good place to talk about you know, the fact that it is industrial design and what it is, you know, what is the product, or, you know, that you are designing, and, you know, why, you know, you've just, you know, the things that one would do for an artist statement, use that to talk about your work in industrial design. So we have had sort of a variety of examples of industrial design students, I suppose, who have submitted work. Sometimes they are like, it'll be a website, you know, like a rendering on the website, which we will then put on like on one of our monitors. Typically it's the computer. I don't know if we're using, yeah, we'll have to figure out which interface we use to present it but it'll be on one of our Macs. And then that can either go on a shelf or again, a pedestal. And it's typically in that case, sometimes many of these websites are interactive, they want people to go through. So we'll have like a trackpad or a mouse that people can scroll through the website. Sometimes people make, folks have also made like a booklet that talks about the process and the idea. And again, there are a variety of ways in which that can be shown. Sometimes there are printouts, you know, like a series of prints of the process in industrial design, and those will then, you know, simply get presented on the walls, whether they're pinned. Usually they're pinned, or magnets, something like that. Does that help, Adelina? In terms of, yeah, okay.
And just one thing about Srimoyee, I know that in general category, we don't have industrial design as an option to select.
Oh,
so, you know, yeah, so maybe that's part of Adelina's question too, but
yeah,
something to think about.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's something that we can, yeah, this is good, something for us to go back to for, you know, next year. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to note, at least in the past for the form for submission, there is sort of like a general drop-down category, so like 2D, 3D, time-based. And then I think in the past, our application form has had an open-ended text entry field for media. And so that might just be a place where you could offer that part of the description.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. That's really helpful. So think about the format in which you would be submitting it. And if it's a print, for example, you can say 2D, if it's a website, you can say digital, something. Is there photos of past exhibitions we can look at so we can get an idea of how it would look? Yes, we can do that. There is a Flickr account. Let me I don't know. There's a new system of where the Flickr accounts are posted.
Yeah, I'm on it right now. Let me see if I can find the undergraduate Juried Exhibition. I just don't know if that's how they have it categorized. So yeah.
Sorry, are you going to post that on the? Can we post that in the
Yeah,
chat?
so I'm on the Flickr account right now. I just don't know if there are things sorted out by undergraduate exhibition or not. So that's what I'm looking right now. Yes, okay, so wait. Yes, okay. So I'm putting this in the chat right now. Let me know, students, if you have access to it or not. But if you want to scroll down to Undergraduate Juried Exhibition, you'll see a bunch of pictures. It's not a lot, unfortunately, but you'll see a bunch of pictures from the Undergraduate Juried Exhibition from last year. Oh, actually, yeah, there are 277 pictures.
Yeah.
But that's of the works. So you'll see, how they are displayed, what it looks like at the gallery, the monitors that are displaying the 4D work, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more to the works of the students rather than how they are curated, but at least you'll see what is there. All right, Delina, thank you for confirming. Are there any other questions so far? Do y'all feel like better prepared right now? How's that going for you? Little thumbs up, little thumbs down, Adelina.
This was very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad.
I want one other thing I maybe want to note about the application process is the importance of proofing all the copy that you enter into the form, because we will pull information for wall labels directly from the form that you use to submit your application. So just make sure before you hit submit that you've gone through and checked for capitalization, spelling, punctuation, all of those kinds of things. Because as you might imagine with 65 works and extended statements, artist statements going on labels, it is a monumental task if we have to proofread all of that content. So please do proofread your copy before you submit your application.
Oops. All right.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions? So I did put my my email in there. If you feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. And yeah, other than that, well, good luck. Thank you for attending. I know there is a lot going on, so it's hard to make time sometimes, but I appreciate you all being here. If feel free to let your friends and classmates know about the session if they have if they're sharing their questions with you, because maybe we would have discussed it here. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, I think we will, I want to be mindful of our time. We'll end it. Thanks again. Thank you, Mark, for being here. Thank you, Joe. And we'll see you. Hopefully we'll see your application in the portal. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.